How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another pool coaching video. And in today's video, I am rejoined by Nate from CueItUp Podcast and Demetrius from MN Pool Bootcamp. Say hello, guys.
What's up? We're back. Thanks for having us back, Chris.
Good to see you guys again.
Yep, I'm happy to have y'all. And it turns out in this video, Nate, you actually know the person that we're going to review in this video. So why don't you introduce him?
Ha! Ha! Yeah, I know, Matt. So we're gonna rip him apart today. I get to be fun-loving with him because I've done several private sessions with him in the past, and I guess I'm hoping that a lot of the things I tried to instill upon his mechanics and his game are going to show up today. And if not, I will probably have to yell at him a whole bunch. So I'm not sure if I'm rooting for the first or the latter, but regardless, this is going to be fun. I enjoy doing this. So without further ado, Matt, let's see what we can get from you.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, what we're going to do here is watch Matt play 3 racks of 8-ball, and each one of us are going to do live commentary and then break down the areas of where we think we can offer advice. Now, the other two that did not participate, they're going to be able to offer one type of advice that probably was not mentioned by the original commentator. So with this first rack here, Nate's going to be the one to do the commentary. Okay, so here we are with rack 1. So Nate, take it away.
So wow, it's just like perfect timing. Every time, right when we're getting started, it's like a cat has to get it. So we can start the video, and luckily for you, Chris, that cats are insanely popular on YouTube. So you are going to see your views go through the roof.
Fantastic. Here we go.
Maybe I can stop getting hit in the face by her tail long enough to do something here. All right, so starting out, he's got the 1 ball to the side. He also has the cue ball to the side. Little bit lazy maybe on the cue ball there, but we don't know that he had any practice time. So I think my scratch into the side pocket on the very first rack that I break is at like 90%. Seems like I always do that. So I can't criticize that one too much. So I like that he's taking this ball first. What I would like to see him take first is maybe the 13 ball, because then you could take the 13 ball and just kind of follow it forward a little bit and then take that same exact shot. And I don't like this because now we move the 8 ball to a spot that's pretty tough. The 4 and the 6 ball are covering up most of the windows to be able to move to make his 8 ball later on in the rack. So I don't like moving the 8 ball to there. Luckily, he does have the 10 ball there, so he should be able to just kind of stop the cue ball and play the 8 ball into the bottom left. But it's just something I don't like to see from the beginning. If we don't have to bump balls, let's not do it. So I think the best shot there was to start out with the 13 to the bottom left and just follow forward for that shot that he took. But this is where we're at now. So let's move along to where he's at. I like that. And if you're watching this at home, you can actually see a really good indicator of how long his stroke is there. He has a really long stroke. I've worked with him quite a bit in the past on that. It's very hard to control, but ooh, all right. That's a good shot. He moved the 6 ball to a more advantageous spot. He should be able to get onto the 8 ball from there. But again, we're bumping balls, and with the way the pattern originally laid, we didn't need to bump any balls. So the fact that we're moving balls now, I don't like it. So missed a ball, no big deal. Cue ball ended up in a perfect spot to attack the solids from. Just a little bit of a draw stroke maybe on the 6 ball to come out, or you can follow it forward and play the 6 into the top right. Hit it well. Knowing Matt the way that I know Matt, I suspect that this should be executed pretty well. You want to make sure that you get below the middle line of the 3 ball, because you do not want to be sending your cue ball towards the 2 ball. You'd like to be following it straight or even going to the left. That way you don't have to worry about bumping the 2 ball and potentially, moving it towards the 5 and the 7, or, having something weird happen. So he looks like he got a little bit of an angle. The cue ball is going to go away from the 2. Nicely executed there. He's really racing around the table, though. I'm not overly fond of that. Maybe I think the room's a little cramped because I'm seeing he didn't get down on his shot fully. Oh, there's a wall over there, isn't there? All right. Doesn't want the cue ball on the rail. Should be okay. He's going to have to probably settle for a longer 8-ball here. But it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And he finishes off the rack pretty nicely. So now that we've seen the conclusion of the rack, we will take a deeper dive into the actual some of the shots that we saw that we could actually help him to start bettering his game with. All right, so I really want to make one comment, and this is really the only comment that I really want to make, mostly because this is when you have a stroke this long and this. I mean, he really does have a huge stroke. He goes way back on his backstroke, and that's usually okay if you can control it. So Tyler Steyer has a huge stroke. Shane has a huge stroke, and it's okay because they stroke the cue just so straight. It's okay. But I do want to take a look at this, and what we're going to look at here, and I hope that this is going to work. We can see the line of his shaft. And as we play this video, we're going to get to see as to whether or not he stays on this line, because we want to see him stroke straight back and straight forward on that line. So let's actually watch the stroke here. Oh, I need to go back to this one. All right. So as a back on his final stroke, you can actually see that this cue, and you'll have to probably go back maybe, but his hand actually ends up over here. And it ends up right here, like right at the very end of his stroke. He kind of almost pulls it to his side. So let's watch it one more time so we can really see that. And here we are. So this looks pretty good, but then at the end, he kind of almost pulls his hand towards his body, and you could see his shaft just kind of get pulled in that direction. And so really, if we're going to have that long of a stroke, we can see that it starts getting a little squirrely towards the back end of it. And if you're going to do that, you really have to be conscious on where your elbow is going to be at the end of your big long stroke, so that you're not pulling it out of line of the shot. So this is what I've worked with Matt in the past, and it still sneaks up here and there in his shot. So I would like to see him really start. If you're gonna insist on having that long of a stroke, you really got to put extra emphasis on making sure that you're straight the entire time, or you just can't start from a good spot. So that's really the only thing I really want to talk about. So I guess from there, I will pass it on to you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Nate. You kind of already mentioned this during the live run-through about how he played this 15 ball, and you didn't like how he bumped the 8 ball, and I happen to agree with it. I just wanted to go a little bit further into this, because since he has ball in hand, if he's able to shoot this 15 ball like this, which causes him to bump the 8 ball over here, and then he bumped his 13 ball, he can clearly move his cue ball right here and just shoot the 15 ball without disturbing the 8 ball. Because once the 15 ball is moved, the 8 ball now has a free path to go into this corner pocket. So you kind of mentioned that there's no reason to move it the moment you move the 15 ball. At that point there, almost any ball can actually become the last ball, because the 8 ball does not have to go here. If he does happen to use the 10 ball as the last ball, the 8 ball can go here, or it can go down here after he clears out these stripes here. The biggest point being is that 8 ball did not have to be moved. It actually made the rack a little bit harder, even though he was able to recover a little bit more when he moved the 6 ball out of the way. It was just unfortunate that he wasn't able to finish the rack as stripes. That's pretty much the comment that I have on here. Like you said, if there's no reason that you have to be able to bump a ball because it has paths to go to pockets, then try to leave it where it's at. Otherwise, you wind up getting yourself in trouble. Demetrius, do you have anything you want to add?
All right. Thanks, Chris. So, Matt, heck of a player. So this is, I'm going to be a little bit more demanding from you because you're such a good player. So actually what I'm about to say is kind of a compliment, because if you were just learning the game, I wouldn't expect this much from you. But I want to take a look at this 11 ball. And I've got a question for you and for the viewers as we watch this is, why did you miss this 11 ball? So let's take a look. So here we go. Play. All right. So why does he miss this 11 ball? And all right, so I'm going to pause it there, and I want everyone to pause the video for a minute, and then I'm going to ask you to hear my answer. So you, everybody listening, come up with your answer. Why did he miss the 11 ball? All right, now we're back. I'll share my answer because it's a very difficult shot. I might miss that 11 ball. It's very tough. You have to shoot from a long distance. You're bridged off the rail. You're cutting it into a corner. It's a missable ball. And so you're a good enough player that I'm like, well, how do we end up here? And so because ultimately you didn't run the table, you had ball in hand, the balls were open, you didn't run out. And so it's too easy to just gloss over that and be like, I don't know, I just missed a shot. But it's like, no, that's a missable shot. So how did we get there? Let's go back a minute. Well, look at this. You got here on the 10 ball. Well, this is a pretty long, straight in kind of shot down the rail. It's a little bit tough. You don't want to get hooked beyond the 6. You have to try to like draw it out of there. Obviously ran into the 6, kind of dangerous. Well, then you can say, well, that's a pretty tough transition. How do we get there? And we go back to here. And we say, okay, now what I do like, I like the fact that you recognize that ball you were shooting at blocked the 11, and so you wanted to get it out of there. But ultimately, you were just satisfied to make this ball, and you just kind of figured, well, I'll just get out somewhere, and I don't really know where you were trying to send the cue ball. And what I want people to see, I have a saying that goes like this. When people make a mistake, bad players set up the shot that they missed, and they try that shot again. Average players set up the shot where they got on a line and they say, well, this is where my thing started, this is where things started getting bad. But I'd say that actually good players and really great players say this is where things started to go wrong, is where you left yourself a chance to get out of line on the next ball and leave yourself a hard shot. And so what I would really like to see is you say to yourself, you have a great shot making, great stroke, but you can't just assume that it's always going to be easy and you can just do whatever you want to do. So on a shot like this, maybe, here's some options. Maybe you can kind of dribble back and play this ball here on the side, and then you can shoot a little 2-inch, 6-inch draw, and maybe roll the 9 ball in. Here, I'll let people see what, roll the 9 ball in the corner, come down for the 13 on the side, and then use this 10 ball to get on the 8, which is actually probably the best key ball. So, and if that wasn't an option, anyway, the bottom line is that whatever your plan is, I think you kind of need to recognize that you can't just say to yourself, well, I got out of line on the, I got out of line on the 11 ball and missed. So you can't just say, oh, I missed it. It's like, no, you can't rely on 75% shot after 75% shot and expect to run through tables. So be a little bit more demanding, plan a little bit further ahead, and just don't, you've got a great stroke. Just don't bet the game on it so often. You'll do better.
I like that. Yep, I agree.
Yep, I agree with that also, because the transition from that ball to the 10 ball, I think, was the mistake. We all agree that the 10 ball should have been the last ball to set up for the 8 ball. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for rack 1, and we're going to allow Demetrius to take over for rack 2.
All right, Matt, let's go ahead and take a look at rack 2. All right. And I think that although you lost the cue ball on the last break, one thing I liked, is you don't kick your leg up. Now, I think the cue ball was tracking close to the side, but I like that. You have a good break in terms of technique. Some players I see really donkey kick their back leg, and I have a friend that always tells me, says, this isn't the 90s, so that we don't need to do all that to get the power. So, but okay, so looks like you made one, and tough opening shot. Oh, this 12 going aside. All right. And I like stripes. The 8 ball is a little covered with solid. So that means what I think about like this is all the stripes are open. So what I'm thinking about is what's a good key ball to get on the 8, because the 8 ball doesn't go just everywhere. You kind of have to be near the right-hand side pocket part of the table. So I start looking and say, what is the best ball to lead to that? Of course, the 11 needs to go right away to open the 13, although you could just go 15, 13, 11, 10. Yeah, okay. I might have just gone ahead and done 4 stop shots, guys. I might have gone 15 stop, 13 up in the other corner stop, 11 stop, 10 on the side stop. It's just maybe even 9 roll forward and shoot the 8 on the side. I mean, whatever. It's just, to me, I got to run that table. My cue ball wouldn't ever move more than about 12 inches after pocketing a ball, and just kind of keeps things a little foolproof. So just some thoughts on how I play, but okay. All right, so now we're going to get to see solids. And now this is more kind of interesting, actually, because the 2 ball is going to be a massive issue. And let's see how you handle this here.
I think that 2-ball might go by the 11, don't you think?
I think so. I think that's what's behind it.
Yeah, reminds me of another shot you and I looked at, Nate. Right. You know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Anyway, okay, back to the match. So here he's got a really good angle on the 6 to where with a stun shot and maybe a little bit of left spin, he could, not like a spinning cue ball, but just a half a tip of left and a stun shot. He could shoot the 6 in the corner and billiard into the 2. But so the 2-ball must go because this is too good of an opportunity to pass up breaking it. So I'm assuming that the 2-ball goes. And that was a nice shot. That's not an easy shot what he just did. And he did leave himself a little tough. He's going to have to try to do something here, maybe with that 7. Let's see how he handles it. I find this to be a difficult shot. Easy to overcut this into the point because it doesn't slide in very easily here. If it's close, oh, what a shot. And he busted open the 2. Where does it stop?
It looks like it's
tough
blocked.
Day at the office.
Yeah, and I think the 10-ball even blocks a bank on it. That looks pretty deadly.
Yeah, he's going to have to. This is a spot where, guys, here's the thing, is now that the 13 is tied up, I might look at playing safe. I might bank the 6 into the 11, pocketing the 11, leaving my 6 near the pocket, park the cue ball somewhere down near the end rail, and just say, hey, your 13, it doesn't go. Now, then again, if the 13 goes on the side, but I think from that angle, I might even start thinking about, but I can't blame him if he tries to run out. They're runnable. It's just difficult. This is a kind of a dead end shot. It's really hard to get out of there, but he did a great job. And he might have solved the rack here if he can. Boy, he's got to split these on.
He might have 2 shots at the 2-ball. I mean, the 6-ball's in a great breakout opportunity as well.
I still might shoot the 6 instead there, because if you shoot the 6, you're knocking the 2 away from the block pocket, whereas if you shoot that ball and hit him, you're knocking the 2 towards the block pocket. So I feel like you could have cut the 6 there and knocked them more out into space. But all right, this is part of 8-ball, guys. Sometimes you back yourself into a corner, and that's just part of the game. If you never get into a dead end spot, that just means you're not playing the game right, because once in a while this just happens. So now he's going to kick combo to flick the Hustler shot. For those that have seen the 61 film, yeah. That little insider tip is he almost made it when they shot that in the Hustler. That's not what they were trying to do, but that's what happened on the video, so they kept it and acted like that's what they were trying to do, is the kick combo. So there's a little inside info for you guys. All right, back to the game. We got strikes. Now this here is a great example. That 9-ball is near the 8. The 8-ball is not so easy to get on, so clearly we want to save the 9 until last. I think that I would shoot the 11 here myself, because I find this 13 to be a tough enough shot to where I feel that I could play shape and get, a better shot on it, like maybe 11, 13, 10, 9. But if you do this, totally fine. Just got to make it.
Yeah. Just barely.
And once again, Solids, man, he's going to have a tough time of this. You might have to, boy. It looks like you could almost follow into him with high, come off the end rail with some right spin, but on these cut shots, the cue ball glances more than people think. See that? It wasn't anywhere close to breaking him open. So
what are you talking about? That's how he meant to play it right there.
I'll tell you what, that's this is one of those things where you almost wish it didn't go in, because he's going like 14 rails here.
No. He's actually playing by BCA rules on this one.
Okay.
So that was not his called shot, so he went ahead and went on to the next set.
Okay. All right, let's see him clean up here.
Ooh, I hope he wasn't playing positioning for a combination.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, you're right, Nate. It's easy to just assume that the 9's going to end up hanging after the shot, but we both know that it can end up on the side rail, it can end up on the end rail, you can bump the 2 into the 8. But hopefully he can get by the 2 and hit the 8 like that, and then never a doubt. Tell you what, it was a good shot.
We'll call it a good shot.
From where he was, it was a good shot. All right, Matt, you got it. All right, Matt. So I mentioned this during the video, but this is your first opportunity at the table. And again, at your level, we're looking to try to find a way to get you to convert on your first turn of the table more and more often. Obviously, you run tables. Let's do it more of the time. So right here, the first thing I noticed was that the 13 did not pass the 11 into the corner. However, I also see that you're pretty much straight on this 15. And if you stop the cue ball right where it's at here, then you've got a shot to shoot this 13 all the way up in the corner. And you shot it later from a tougher angle, but if you stop right there, it's not that bad. And then I noticed, boy, look at this. You can stop on the 11 in this corner. And then guess what? You can shoot the 10 in this side pocket and kind of stop right around there. And I know I said it's a little tough to get on the 8 ball, but actually it's not my favorite shot to shoot the 8 in the side. But I'll tell you what I like is that if you roll the 10 in the side and you're shooting the 9 from out here, your cue ball's automatically going to roll down this direction. And so I like the fact that I can get there. I can get the right angle on the 9 all the time because the 10, all I have to do is kind of stop and I'm there, or roll it in and I'm there. So therefore, yes, I'd rather be right here, but I don't want to shoot from over here and I don't want to shoot from out here. So in the end, if I can get to the circle every time, and if that solves the entire rack where all I have to do is go stop, roll, like to me, that's pretty hard to argue with. And so if you add up, here's a way I want you to kind of look at these runs. How many inches is your cue ball moving after contacting the object ball? And in this, the way I diagrammed it, it's like 0 inches, 0 inches, 0 inches, maybe 2 inches, maybe a foot. And so and then you're going to shoot the 8 with a stop shot. So your entire table run, you're going to have 12 inches of cue ball movement. And people talk about like Mosconi running 100 balls, and there's all these legends like, well, how do you do that? Well, that's how you do it, is you kind of say, every time you move the cue ball, you're opening the door for stuff to go wrong. And the best way to play perfect cue ball is to just not move it. Because look at it this way. If you move your cue ball 4 feet and you're off by 20%, well, you're off by 9 or 10 inches. If you move your cue ball an inch and you're off by 20%, you're off by like a quarter of an inch. And that's kind of where I like to be. And so that's how I play cue ball. That's why, that's it. So that's what I would say is just ask yourself if there's a way to try to put an emphasis when you're grading the quality of your runouts. Don't grade them as pass fail. Either I ran out or I didn't. Start to measure how much your cue ball actually traveled, and that'll be a better judge of how well you're running through the tables. Nate, anything you wanted to point out?
All right, so I really want to dial into this shot right here because you eventually shoot this 13 ball into the side pocket right here, and you ended up missing the ball and you end up hanging it. Well, with where the 2 ball is, that actually turns out to be kind of a winning shot with how you leave it anyways, but we really don't want to have to rely on a fortunate hanging of a ball to be able to win a rack. So really what we want to see here is we have this kind of dilemma. And really what we're thinking in our head is, yes, the 11 ball's hanging, so why would I want to take a ball now? Because it's so easy, it might help me out later on. And that generally speaking is a really good way of looking at a rack, because you do want to have what I call saver balls, meaning we're not always perfect with our positioning. We need sometimes to have a ball that bails us out. And sometimes just having one of those is the difference between running out of a rack and not running out of a rack. You're a good enough player. There's 5 balls on the table. They're open for the most part, right? The idea with this rack is, why do you need a saver? And of course, generally speaking, you want to have one if you can have one, but you don't want to get rid of one for a shot that's going to be overly difficult. Like the 13 ball you can make, it's probably a 60% shot, but if you take the 11 ball, it's a 100% shot. And really what we'd like to see here is you have 2 options. You can either come out here like this between these, or what I really like is I just like coming between here and just coming out to the center of the table. And I like the center of the table because if you get it back somewhere into this area, if you end up short, you're somewhere in here, you have this 10 ball to the side pocket, right? And if you end up going long, coming down to here, you have still this 10 ball and this 13 ball, and you're never going to argue that this 13 ball is a harder shot, even from down here, than it is right now. Really? So what are you really protecting yourself from doing? This is an easy enough transition that you can get it back to here. And there's really all the way in this area right here. Even if you go, even if you go all the way down into here, you're going to offer yourself a shot that's easier than the shot you're starting with to begin with. So while, yes, I'd like the idea of trying to save a saver ball in case we need it, it's not willing we should not be willing to give up a saver shot for something that's going to create a 60% shot on a wide open table. So I really like the idea if you take in the 11 ball, playing your position back out to here, and then from here, going to what Demetrius said, if you can get your cue ball to right here, what do we have? Well, we have this shot on the 13, stop shot. We have this shot to the side pocket, stop shot. We have this 9 ball just basically drifting. We can either drift it forward to here, or we could even do a stop shot with an angle and come between the 2 and the 8 ball, somewhere down into maybe this area, right? So you're leaving yourselves, and of course you can mess around with your angle on the 10 ball a little bit. Maybe you want to draw it an inch, maybe you want to follow it forward 6 inches, whatever you need to do with it. You're not moving the cue ball hardly at all, and this looks like a giant hornet's nest at this point. But the idea here is it really becomes simple. As long as you're able to play this 11 ball, it becomes a simple series of stop shots that, there's just no 60% shot that you have to shoot in here if you come out to here. Because once you get to right here, anywhere in here, this is a 100% shot. This is a 100% shot. Maybe this transition from the 9 to the 8 ball is 80 to 7, maybe so it's a 75% shot. All of that is better than taking a 60% shot to begin with. So I like the simplicity of just shooting your saver ball, but getting yourself to a spot where you really don't have to worry about any more difficult transitions from there. So that's really what I wanted to talk about. What do you have to highlight, Chris?
All right, thanks, Nate. This is what I wanted to talk about, which is your opportunity to try to break out the 2 ball from the 5 ball. And I do agree that you also have a breakout opportunity from the 6 ball as well when you get there. This is something I actually used to struggle with all the time. If we actually look at how you're cueing on the cue ball, we already see that you have right spin on the cue ball. And the first thing that usually comes to my mind is, why do you think you need right spin? Because your cue ball has to go to the right in order to have some sort of chance to be able to break out the 2 ball. But here's the thing though. The naturalness of being able to shoot a ball says that since you're cutting the 5 ball to your left, the cue ball is automatically going to the right. So if you know that already, the only thing you have to ask yourself is, well, how much more right do I need? Now, I don't have a direct answer for that. That's something that you have to actually figure out through feel and experience. However, if you do know where you think the cue ball is going to hit the rail, if I were to just try to reflect this angle, which looks right about there, and just keep on going and keep it as close as I can, we can pretty much see that if you were to put no spin on the cue ball, you are more than likely going to hit the clutter like you wanted, because this is actually how you would want to separate these two, and you don't want to do it by blasting it either, because you did hit your 5 ball kind of hard. If you did catch the side rail like you did and clipped the 13 ball, your cue ball is going to end up going over to the 6 ball, and we don't even know if it's going to hit the 6 ball, but you start to really lose control of your cue ball if you were successful with the way you were trying to do it. Here, if you just nudge the 13 ball, it's going to separate from the 2 ball. The 2 ball will now be almost back to where it was originally at, to where you could shoot it past the 11 ball. And you're also going to have a shot on the 6 ball, just in case you don't have a shot on the 2 ball. So the biggest thing that I think you have to kind of remember here is still trying to understand where the cue ball is going to go all by itself. And ask yourself, does it need help? At least in this example here, we can kind of see that it probably didn't. But let's say that I'm wrong. Let's say that this line is actually wrong, and if you were to shoot this, it was going to end up like this. Well, that's actually kind of okay, because if you have the correct power, then you end up hitting it from here. And you end up with the same kind of result. Either you don't have a shot on the 2 ball, but you have a shot on the 6 ball. So at the very least, when you're trying to figure out how you're going to break out a ball, be mindful of where the cue ball naturally goes, and then try to figure out if you need to help it. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for Rack 2, and I'm going to conclude this all with Rack 3.
If you don't mind me jumping in real quick,
sure.
It's the same way with the 4-railer when you're playing 3-cushion billiards. For any of the 3-cushion billiard players out there, you always want to try to give yourself a chance to get the billiard on the way into the rail as well as the way out of the rail. And this is kind of the same situation. If you go long there, which is what he ended up doing, he ends up going to that left cushion and he ends up not having a chance off the reflection. It's kind of the same way with getting billiards in 3-cushion.
Yep, I can't agree with that. So keep that in mind, Matt, as we wrap this all up with your last rack. All right, Matt, let's see how you can finish this off on the last rack. Okay, pretty solid break there. Looks like we dropped both solids and stripes. Let's see which one you're going to choose here. I'm not really a big fan on how far your follow-through is on all three of those breaks. Like, to me, it's like an overextension to just be able to try to have so much power. I think you can still actually pull back the length of your follow-through and still have the same amount of power. And you will also have a little bit more control. Okay, looks like we're going to try to take stripes. That looked a little familiar.
That's a tough shot.
So I believe the table would still be open since you made both sets on the break and you haven't made anything yet.
By BCA rules, that is correct.
What are we looking at here? Are you just dead set on stripes? It looks like you are. That was a good shot, but uh-oh. We lost control of the cue ball. I'm actually surprised you decided to do that kind of a back cut there on that ball. There were actually other balls you could have tried to start with. So the table is still open. What are we going to do with ball in hand?
I suspect he's going to go for... Oh, man, this has been a tough table. All 3 innings at the table for him. It really has been tough.
All right, so we're going to start with solids here. I'm surprised you pointed at the 5 ball, but you didn't start with the 5 ball. What's your entire plan here? Well, that was interesting. I'm suspecting you wanted to get position on, I think that's the 4 ball in the lower right corner, but now you're going to shoot the 6. All right, good shot there. So what about this 1 ball and 5 ball? Oh, that worked out really well. Wow, nice shot. You have to be taking the 5 now. Okay. Good shot there, but looks like maybe a little on the soft side, but we can still cut that into the side pocket.
Double the rail with inside English.
That's pretty much
Sorry,
what I'm thinking.
That's the shot.
Nate's got me thinking 3 cushion. No, you just go. You don't get back to the side rails. It's 2 rails though. But
I would have hit that with a bunch of inside. Actually, that's why I would have shot it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you cut that a little too close there.
Yeah, coming into the rail with that much angle though, you don't get to double the side rail, but you could go to the side rail, end rail, and come straight towards the 8. But, oh no!
How did you do that?
The pain. He made such a good couple shots too.
He played a good pattern to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to hit the 8 ball and then barrel through those stripes with still enough momentum to be able to scratch, that was unfortunate. So in BCA, though, that is not considered a loss. You now have ball in hand for the stripes. If it was APA, that would actually be considered a loss.
Ooh.
All right, that was interesting.
Nice shot over a ball.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of all this up and down movement you're doing with the cue ball for the table. Now that was a good shot. Good recovery, though. I mean, the main goal is still as long as you get out.
And he's getting his style points racked up for this one.
Yeah, tell me about it. All right, cool. Well, that was kind of wild how you did all of that with that one there. So we got a couple of things we can talk about with this rack, so let's have a look at them. All right, Matt, this is the first spot I wanted to start with. You had a rough start here with this rack not being able to claim a set, I think on the first couple of shots. But then when you got ball in hand, you decided to start here with the 7 ball. Now, what I thought was interesting was you pointed at the 5 ball. I can only think that the reason why you pointed at the 5 ball is because you acknowledge it to be a troubled ball. It doesn't really have anywhere to go unless you're right here to be able to shoot it into this corner pocket. So if you were already looking at it, I'm just surprised that you didn't actually start with it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that is the ball you should be starting with, because we also have the 1 ball over here. So it's a matter of picking your poison between these two. Which one should you actually start with? The 1 ball currently can only go here unless you plan on banking it. But since we have ball in hand, why are we going to do a tough shot? So what I actually see here that seems reasonable to me is probably to start with the 1 ball. Get this out of the way, and you can pull the cue ball back ever so slightly and play a small combination to where the 5 ball replaces I think that's the 4 ball. Once you do that, now your 6 ball becomes a really good ball that you can use to transition back down to the other end of the table to be able to handle the 2 ball and the 7 ball, and it looks like your 8 ball is going to end up going somewhere right around here. The main thing that I always like to talk about this is when you have ball in hand, the ball that you want to start with is what I like to be considered the hardest ball on the table, meaning the ball that's the hardest to play position on. Now, granted, with the pattern that you came with, you almost ran the freaking table, which is super awesome, but it's also more difficult because we saw how you had to move the cue ball around a whole lot. Here, we start with one end of the table, we work to the other end of the table, and then just return back to the 8 ball, which I think is going to be an easier pattern for you to be able to control, because again, all we're dealing with is smaller cue ball movements. So like Demetrius had mentioned in his rack that he reviewed, smaller cue ball movements are just a lot more easier to control, therefore giving you a higher success rate. And this is going to be the second spot that I wanted to talk about, because after you had unfortunately almost made the 8 ball, you scratched, and now with ball in hand, you decide to start with, I think this is I think it's a 12 ball, I can't really tell, or if maybe this is the 12 ball, it's hard to tell. But the thing that I really have an issue with is how you did this entire pattern. You finished the rack, so that's great, but the pattern, your cue ball movement was just all over the place. You attempted to shoot this ball into the side pocket, and we saw that you indicated you wanted your cue ball to land right here to take the 9 out. But we fell short of that, and we landed somewhere right here to where you had to come back up table. I think you shot the 11 ball, and then you used this ball to attempt to come back down table, but you failed at that, and then you shot this ball and then came back down table. So you do this really hard thing of going from one end of the table to the other. A whole lot of cue ball movement, giving you a really large margin of error to mess up. Pretty much we said that you did mess up because you kept trying to get position on the 9. You just kept coming out with those great recoveries in order to be able to finish the rack. So ultimately, what I would like to advise is you should have just started with the 9 ball. You could shoot the 9 ball in, move the cue ball up to the center of the table, and then just have your way at the rest of the table. At this point here, it looks like it probably should have been the 11 ball. We don't even do any type of movement to be able to shoot the 10 ball into this pocket here. You can allow your cue ball to roll forward, or if you have the angle, stun out this way, shoot this ball here, stop the cue ball, cut this ball here, and then just get your position on the 8. It's just still a whole lot more or less, or a whole lot less cue ball movement once you get the 9 ball out of the way, because you're done with this half of the table, and you only have to focus on cue ball movements being at this half of the table. Just like how I said before, that movement is much smaller, therefore easier to control.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind jumping in here, because this is actually my comment as well. And I think this one really needs to be hammered home. So I am going to just jump in. Sorry, Demetrius, I know you're going to go next, but it just makes sense that I kind of jump in here. I like the pattern that you played, Chris, except for there's a few things that I like differently. Sure. And I like shooting the cue ball the exact same way here. So let me grab the pencil up here. I like shooting it the exact same way. Give yourself a nice healthy angle here. And instead of drifting down table, straight down table, I like just drifting you can either come to this rail if you want and out, or I like just drifting down table this way. And I like this way because then we can go back to Demetrius's idea of just stop shots, right? If we end up anywhere in here, anywhere in this angle or anywhere on this shot line, which is why I don't hate coming off this rail. What do we have? We have this 11 ball here, stop shot, 12 ball to this side pocket, stop shot, shoot this 14 ball in, basically just roll it into here, and then you have a nice angle to come up here. So I'm not saying that this is a better angle or a better pattern than the one little Chris pointed out, but the point is there's a lot of very, very simple ways that you can address this table, and not one of them involves shooting the 12 ball first. This really is that. And if you're going to do this, if you do insist on doing this, let's do it in a more natural way. So I don't like ever having the idea of doing a stun, and I know I can do this. This is ironic that I'm saying doing this in a simpler way when I'm taking this instead of, just pressing this to get rid of everything. But why don't we just put the cue ball right here? Let's put the cue ball right here. If we're going to do this, let's shoot this 12 ball into the side pocket and drift the cue ball naturally the way that it wants to go anyways. What you're doing is you're having it almost straight in, and you're trying to like stun a ball off of a natural angle to come up into here anyways. It's just, you're really forcing the cue ball to do something it doesn't want to do naturally already. So if we're going to insist on doing this, let's get it right here and just let the cue ball do what it naturally wants to do anyways and drift up into this area. So that's what I would say. Let's try to get the cue ball to do exactly what it wants to do already without fighting it. So I kind of jumped in there. I know, Demetrius, you were supposed to go next, but this is kind of what I wanted to talk about as well. So I'll hand it off to you now.
All right. Thanks, Nate. So I want to go back to right after the break shot here. This is a very interesting layout, and there's a lot of work to do with both stripes and solids. You could make an argument for either ball suit, but I actually do like stripes. And it's weird because the 9 ball is it's a pretty serious problem for stripes, but there's so many good things about stripes. You've got all these open balls that are around the 8. And on top of that, once you clear them out, the 8 ball easily goes. Solids, you've got the 1 ball's a problem, and the 4 or 5 are kind of problem balls. And there's just nothing nearby. You could maybe do it, but I actually like stripes because all I've got to do is deal with 1 problem ball, which is the 9. And that brings me to kind of one of my points, which is this 15 ball actually is not a problem ball. It goes here in the side pocket. And so when you shoot your opening shot, you pick this 14 into a corner, and you were a little hampered with the bridge, so it's questionable whether this is actually the easier shot or the correct shot. But if you're going to shoot this shot, you ended up trying to steer the cue ball and break open this cluster. But there's 3 reasons why I don't like that. 1, you make the shot more difficult, and actually you miss this ball, maybe trying to like force the cue ball, or it's just by shooting harder, you're making that shot more difficult. So 1 is it's your opening shot, it's a tester, and you're making a tester shot more difficult. Number 2, this ball already goes. So you're breaking a ball that already goes. And number 3, it's actually your friend because it ties up the 1 ball. So it's a ball that goes for you that prevents solids from running out if you don't happen to deal with the 9 ball. So even, for example, even if you shot the 14 in the corner and then just broke open the 9 and handed him the table, he's still going to have a hard time with it. And so I really like leaving that, just kind of leaving that 15 ball alone, regardless of your opening shot. But then the other question then comes down to like, well, what are you going to do with the 9 ball then? And there's a couple thoughts on this. So one thought is, and actually a little moment of confession here, Chris pointed this out on the handoff, but you could shoot this 14 ball first and then maybe deal with these balls up table and use this ball here and play a shape later to kind of get some kind of angle like this where you can bring the cue ball down, either draw it into the rail or kind of roll in between the 9-2, maybe something along those lines to play shape for the 9. The other thing, and I just wanted to point this out because this is rare that I would suggest this, but one thing that's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, if you started with this shot here, which you did, then one thing that's not out of the realm of possibility is like picking off this ball in the corner, maybe taking this shot, and then at some point coming up and, either picking off these other balls or not, but maybe even playing for a length of the table bank on the 9. And it sounds crazy, but if you if you shoot the 10 and you crawl up the side rail and get good at it, I just want to point out that there are times when playing for the bank is easier than trying to play for the breakout. And I don't like doing that. That's why I kind of like doing this sooner rather than running the 11-15. If you can do that pretty quickly, then if you happen to miss, at least the other guy still has both this cluster here and this cluster here to deal with. And so I'm not saying that that's necessarily best, but if you want to start with the 14, you've got a problem to solve with the 9. And since there's nothing anywhere near it, one option would be just play your run around the length of the table bank and do it early enough in the run to where if you miss, he's still got difficulty to overcome.
All right, Matt, that's pretty much going to conclude these 3 racks of 8-ball. You finished 3 racks in 4 innings, which is great. That pretty much gives you off to be a pretty strong player, in my opinion. I am going to say, though, that I think your cue ball movement needs to have better control. Now, mind you, though, even though you were having your cue ball move all over the place, you were still able to make good shots, which is good. But because that cue ball was also moving all over the place, you were also still missing shots. So I think the biggest advice I can give you out of all 3 of these racks is work on having that tighter cue ball control, and therefore you have smaller movements, higher chance at being successful at getting the cue ball where you need it to be, giving yourself higher runouts. Nate, is there anything you want to add?
So basically going naturally off of your advice, you have 2 options. You can either play a tighter cue ball and play the patterns that you're going right now, or you could just play better patterns and you don't have to move the cue ball as much. I mean, obviously there's going to be a combination of both needed to become, that next level of player. So there's no right answer here either way. But as we showed along the way, I mean, either Demetrius, myself, or little Chris, I think in all 3 of the racks at one point in time was talking about you making the patterns overly complex and, really just moving the cue ball way more than you need to for what the actual runouts offered. So what I would like to see is let's look a little bit more on how can we move the cue ball less and use the natural angle of the cue ball wants to travel already to help play your positionings. And I think that's gonna make your transitions a lot easier. You're not going to be shooting the crazy shots that we saw. You made a couple of them here, but we can't rely on being able to make those in the crunch time, in the finals of a tournament, or in league pool or anything like that. When the pressure's applied, we can't rely on being able to make those kind of shots and those transitioning. So it starts with either having a better cue ball or having better positioning or better patterns, but ideally you'd start working on both. So Demetrius, what do you think?
Thanks, Nate. Yeah, and I see this a lot. For those that don't know, I do pool training. I do these boot camps up in Minnesota. Anybody that's interested can check it out at mnpoolbootcamp.com. I have people fly in and I spend 3 days kind of working with them on stuff. And I see this a lot where what happens is they've got parts of their game that are developed really strong. And, in Matt's case, I mean, very, very good shot maker, good fundamentals, a lot of firepower, big stroke, a lot of good things going for him. And obviously uses those tools to where, it's just not at all surprising to see him just barrel through and bomb in a bunch of shots and run through a couple tables in a row. At the same time, there's a diminishing level of return. As you keep getting better and better at those things, you can only get so good at your fundamentals and you can only get so good at your shot making. And at some point, you can't get good enough at shot making to where you're always going to make all those hard shots. And you can't get good enough at your fundamentals to where you're never going to miss a difficult shot. And so at some point, it's great. You've developed these skills and very well. But now you've got to say, okay, a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And instead of trying to figure out how to strengthen the strong links even stronger, let's take a look at where there's actually some leaks in the game. And it's only because you play so strong overall in terms of execution that I actually think this is the fun part, because now it's like, I mean, if I spent 3 days with you, you wouldn't even have to get any better. I just show you which way to aim that gun you already have. And man, just with the tools you've already got, there's just no reason that just a little bit more careful assembly of them, and it's going to be pretty earth-shattering. So I'm maybe come see me offline. Let's talk.
If I can jump in here too, and if anybody out there doesn't know Demetrius, and I'm going to give a shameless plug for what I'm about to do as well. We are about to have the VG10, a Virtual Ghost 10-ball champion, sponsored by Poison Cues. I should probably throw that in there. But we are live streaming this to Facebook for free. And there is actually going to be $18,000 in the purse that we are going to be giving away to 28 players from around the world. Demetrius is going to be playing in this. So if you really want to see how Demetrius plays, to whether or not, this guy should be picking apart your games and helping you out with yours, absolutely make sure to tune in. And you can maybe, who knows, maybe you can get 3 games of his and you could like dissect it and pick on him about stuff. But no, totally just kidding, of course. But if I can give
this is my scared look.
So if I can give the shameless plug for that, if you'd like to watch it, it's going to be 100% free, and you can find that on the CueItUp Billiards Podcast Facebook page. So Demetrius, why don't you take a stand so they can see where to go?
On the CueItUp.
Yeah, you got the shirt on, man.
yeah, representing.
So you can go to that Facebook page. Make sure to like and follow, because I base my happiness off how many likes I have, of course. And watch some of that, and you get to watch some of the best players in the world. There's a lot of top professionals. I think we have 6 world champions that are actually playing in this event, so should be a good event. And with Chris, I got my shameless plug-in. Thank you.
Well, Nate, Demetrius, thank you for joining me again for this episode of Pool Coaching Lessons. I hope we can still be able to do this again. So let me remind my viewers that when it comes to these pool coaching lessons, you have 2 options. You can either have me review them, which I'm currently having all submissions on hold until I get all the ones that I have currently caught up. Or you can have the 3 of us review them, which is a completely different line. We are accepting submissions for those types of reviews because we, all 3 of us, just have to be available to get together and be able to do this. So you can either wait until I open my line back up, or just go ahead and make a submission for the 3 of us to review, and then when we are able to get together, we'll be happy to do so. So when it comes to Matt's review here, if you happen to agree or disagree with any of our comments, we would certainly like to hear about it in the comment section below. If you think there's something else that you would be able to offer Matt and even ourselves that we didn't even see, make sure you leave a comment with the timestamp of the shot, the advice that you would want to give, and maybe even the other pattern that you would want to be able to give. And as always, if you like what you saw, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to actually share this video around, because we want to be able to get publicity for the tournament that Nate is actually putting on. Take care, everybody.